profitability, probably the most important thing when it comes to a law firm. I mean, obviously, look, doing great work is awesome. Helping clients is wonderful. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how much revenue you bring in. If there's no profitability, at the end of it, you can't keep everybody paid. You can't put anything in your pocket. There's really no reason to run a business. And so I always love talking to anybody way smarter than me when it comes to profitability. And I've got one of those people with me today. For those of you that don't know, Jayden Doye, also known as the law firm's CPA, so smart it rhymes, uses his 10 plus experience of accounting and business consulting experience to help firm owners across the nation reach new heights and catch more flights. As president of Prestige Accounting Solutions, Jayden loves to use specialized accounting strategies to help law firm owners increase their profits and pay less to the IRS. Jayden's a best-selling author and internationally acclaimed speaker. His topics range from business development, client acquisition, hiring, profitability, and utilizing technology. He's held numerous workshops around the world on the value of connection, understanding, and collaboration in growing a business. He was even named a best-selling author in 2022 by Amazon, a distinction that speaks to his influence and impact as an author. With an extraordinary ability to connect with people on a profound level and an incomparable capacity to captivate audiences with his words and thoughts, Jayden's work has touched thousands of lives across the globe. I'm so happy to have you here today.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
And what we are talking about today is the 6 steps to increasing profitability. But before we go into those six steps, tell me a little bit, who is Jayden Doye?
You know, Jayden Doye is one of those people who has come from humble beginnings. A lot of people look at me and the lifestyle that I live, and they see that I take a business trip every month. And what they don't see is all of the hard work to get here. So I have had over a decade of experience working in the accounting field. I got my degree from Towson University in Maryland. And 2 weeks later, I packed up my car and moved to Atlanta with no family, no friends, no job. I just knew I was going to make it work. And fast forward, after a lot of hard work and determination, here we are today. So I love working with lawyers in particular. Really feel like, as a licensed professional myself, I understand the importance in making sure that you run your business effectively and efficiently so that you don't actually lose that license that you work so hard to get.
And I love, you had a post the other day about an Amex that was just so funny. Like, you know, the amount of work and effort and, you know, rebuilding your credit and everything you went into. I mean, it was just such a good, all-encompassing story that goes right into what you're talking about today.
Absolutely. And, you know, now we live in a different era. You know, at one point, in order to have a business, you couldn't start a business with no money. Now you can start a business with little to no money per se. But, you know, just I would say maybe over the past 30 years, the industry has changed so much to where we're able to do that. So it's honestly a blessing.
I love it. All right. I got a couple more questions before we dive into the
Okay.
increasing profitability. Why Atlanta? Like, what was that's where I'm called to go.
Yeah, well, I believe life is customizable. So I grew up in Maryland, went to school in Maryland, and even though growing up in DC, PG County, Maryland, versus Baltimore, going to college in Baltimore, these are two completely different experiences. I still felt like I needed to spread my wings and go elsewhere. And so, because I believe life is customizable, you know, my senior year of college, I started to think, where would I want to live after graduation? So I knew I wanted to live in a major city. I knew that the city had to have a nightlife, but they also had to have a lot of job opportunities. So, you know, through process of elimination, it came down to LA, Charlotte, and Atlanta. LA was too expensive. And then it came down between Charlotte and North Carolina. I mean, Charlotte and Atlanta. And at 22, you know, experiencing both cities, I felt like there was more of a nightlife and duality in Atlanta than Charlotte. So Atlanta just became where I moved.
So I just finished a book. I don't remember what it was called, but the author's from Maryland, moves to LA, and she's like, if you're a real Marylander, whatever it was, she's like, you bring Old Day with you everywhere. So I got to ask, did you bring the Old Day to Atlanta?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Yes. Obey and my clothes. That's what
They're
I brought.
too funny. All right,
Yeah,
so I love this. So we're talking about our 6 steps to increasing profitability. Do you want to just do an overview of all 6, and then we'll go into them each time? That'll make the easiest way for us to do a carousel from this.
absolutely. So the 6 steps to increasing profitability, I call it the PROFIT acronym. So the PROFIT method includes P, proper planning, R, relaxing and delegate, O, organization, F, financial statements, I, incorporate profit first, and T, target. Those are the 6 steps to increasing profitability in your firm.
And it spells out profit. All right, that's it, everybody. We're done.
Absolutely.
That's the whole webinar. No, how much did you have to massage it to be profit? Because I mean, it sounds like it's pretty on point.
Honestly, I didn't have to work that hard. I just listed out, all of the things that a client, all of the things that I use when it comes to helping my clients and the FAQs and a lot of the processes, and then kind of organized it into areas to where they make sense. So like it's like taking a bunch of files and putting it into a file folder. And then from there, looking at how many letters it was. And then I started with PRO. And then I had, okay, we're going to make it profit. And now we just need to figure out these last 3 letters.
I love it. Or it's a profit. Either way. But I think
Either,
profit
yes,
is
that's a
on
good
point.
one. That's a good one. Yes.
All right, so let's talk proper planning. When it
Okay.
comes to a law firm owner maximizing their profitability,
Hmm.
walk me through how proper planning comes into play.
Okay, so when it comes to proper planning, we're talking about a few different things. One, you want to make sure that you are planning from a tax perspective. So a lot of people don't even know the difference between tax preparation and tax planning. Tax preparation is someone just preparing your tax return. Tax planning is a tax planner working with you throughout the year and based off the ebbs and flows of your business, helping you estimate what your quarterly estimated tax payment should be. And in addition to that, giving you a list of different strategies that you can implement. Are you in the right corporation? Are you employing family members if that's something that you can do in based off of your jurisdiction? And so many other deferred income. There's so many different strategies that high income earners that have businesses can do to legally mitigate their tax liability. We also want to make sure that we're planning when it comes to a big shift. Whether you're leaving big law and going into your own firm, or maybe you're shifting, maybe you're tired of being burnt out, having to go to court 5 days a week, and you want to go from maybe family law to something more transactional like estate planning. If that's the case, we want to make sure that we plan for that shift. When it comes to hiring, we want to make sure we're planning for that. When it comes to our finances, we want to make sure that we're planning for expenses and income that's to come so that we can effectively plan for shifts that we want to make in our business. A lot of times we want to join these high level programs and things of that nature, but we don't have the free cash flow to do that currently. So effective planning can help you say, okay, well, in the next 30 or 60 days, I will implement this strategy so that I have enough free cash flow in order to invest more into my business.
So along those lines, when it comes to the planning for the upcoming changes,
Mm-hmm.
how much is it you pushing the cart on that idea? How much is it the lawyer coming to you with their longer term goals and you kind of figuring out how to make the finances work? Like, talk to me about that interplay.
Um, I'm more pushing the cart. So for me, I have a gift of making people millionaires. They don't know that they're millionaires when they first meet me. But when I break it down as far as how easy it is to become a millionaire, then they start to listen and they start to implement different strategies. So when I show a client their financial statements, it's as if I'm looking under the hood of the car and showing them, look, this is how bad your oil is. Or, when you go for oil change and then they pull up your filter and they say, look at all the leaves and dirt in your filter. We need to change this so you're breathing clean air. That's what I'm doing when I'm working with my clients. I'm helping them understand that from a number standpoint, what they need to do in order to get to the next level.
I love how you took the like very white collary accounting thing and the obviously lawyering being very white collar, and you're like, here's the blue collar switch, here's the
Mm-hmm.
dirty filter. Too
Yep.
funny. All right. When it comes to the proper part of the planning,
Hmm.
walk me through a little bit of like how we know what the right thing to plan for is.
Okay, so I like, especially when it comes to taxes, I like to kind of walk my clients through all of their options, right? So one of the things that we like to always do when we give our tax plan is do an entity comparison chart. So we're showing them by being in a, if I tell you to be in an S corp, I'm giving you the best advice because if you did a C corp, this is how much you would pay in taxes versus if you stayed taxed as a sole proprietor, this is how much more you will be paying in taxes. So the entity, that is the foundation of the business at the end of the day, how you're taxed. So that's one of the first things that we have to that we have to plan for. And also when it comes to stocks and how you can take money in and out of the business, that changes from an S corporation to a C corporation. So making sure that we are in the right tax entity is one of the number one things we have to make sure that we properly plan for.
I love it. All right. Before we move on to relax and delegate, anything else in proper planning?
I think we're good. I think we covered, I think we covered it.
All right. Well, you brought me in on at least the relax part of, if not the delegate part too. So walk me through
Mhm.
the R in profit.
Well, I'll tell you this. At one point, I was working 80 hours a week in my business. I was working 80 hours a week, 2 months in a row. It was December 2020 and January of 2021. At this point, the government was changing the law every week. And that directly affected tax law. So there were different credits, there were different programs, all of these things that not only affected us, but also affected our clients. So I had to constantly educate myself and constantly make changes to forms and things of that nature. During this time, I was not eating well. I mean, I barely saw sunlight unless I was going to Waffle House to pick up my dinner. And I remember I would have four eggs scrambled with cheese and a blueberry muffin every day. And because I ate so terribly, I actually gained 23 pounds in those 2 months.
Oof.
So my doctor told me that I had high blood pressure, high cholesterol. My stats were honestly disgusting out of nowhere, right? And so I literally had to rest and take time out of my business. And I couldn't believe that me as a CPA, having a team of 13, why am I still working 80 hours a week in my business? Why do I have such a high level of stress? And so I really had to sit back and really figure out what was going on in my business. And I actually booked a vacation at that time too. And when I came back from that vacation, sorry, not a vacation, business trips, because we only take business trips. Okay. When I came back from that business trip, I felt so rejuvenated and I felt well rested and I felt ready to serve my clients much better. So for me, the relax and delegate means you as a business owner need to take at least a quarterly vacation. A lot of companies have mandatory vacation policies. I'll get into that in a moment. But I believe that as a business owner, you need to create that policy for yourself. It's going to help you give you time to get out of everything so that you can truly reflect on your emotions and your feelings and what worked, what didn't work. It'll open up your mind to different possibilities. When you experience different cultures, you get to see things from a different point of view. And that is actually helping develop you as a business owner. So I take a business trip every month, and I know that could be a lot for some people. So I say at least every quarter. And in order for you to do that, in order for you to have a business enterprise that can run without you physically being there, you're going to have to delegate. You're going to have to duplicate yourself in pieces to your team members. So when I talk about relax and delegate, that's what I mean.
When you're talking about this quarterly business trip, I mean, what's the minimum parameter here? Are we talking about like a 1 day trip? Are we talking about a weekend? Are we talking about a week? Like what's the breakdown?
At least 3 days.
Okay.
And many people are in some type of coaching program or mastermind where they Their program has some type of outing every quarter. So it's not very difficult for many people in our industry to do that.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. I don't know who did it first, but I have seen
Right.
more and more of the quarterly retreats
It makes
on
sense
now, like
though.
all of them. Well,
Hmm.
it makes sense of them. And then if you tie it to the 12-week year, if you tie it to the EOS quarter, if you tie it to, quarterly planning, however you want to do it, you can really just have that be your benchmark. I don't know, that be your calendar in essence.
Hmm. Absolutely.
Um, Go a little bit deeper for me if you can on the delegation part. I love you phrased it as recreating yourself in other
Hmm.
people.
Yep. So people feel like in order for me to duplicate myself, I have to have one other person that does everything I do, and that's not true. So having a team of 13 allows me to delegate pieces of my expertise to different team members. So we have different levels. We have entry level people, we have the senior staff, we have the operations manager, we have the marketing team. So everything that I do, almost everything that I do can be done without me being here, except for me signing off on something that I legally have to sign off on. So what we do is we make sure that anything that I do, we create SOPs for. Anything that I do or any of the team members have to do, we create SOPs for. And so we have a whole library of standard operating procedures, and you can do this easily just by using a tool like Scribe How, where it does a screen recording of what you're doing and documents every time you click or type. And so from there, then we take the library and then we pull different SOPs out for different roles. So this also streamlines the learning process when it comes to bringing on a new team member. We also provide them with the rubric that we're going to use when we do their 90-day evaluation. This gives full transparency between me and the team member so they know exactly what I'm going to be reviewing them on, and they know exactly what areas I'm going to be looking at, and they can make sure that they are performing at their peak.
Yeah, I love that. Like, all right, so I'm doing all these things. Here's my library. I put this position together. All right, I'm grabbing this one. I'm grabbing this one. I'm grabbing that one. And now they've got, their manual into the 98 rubric. I think that's such a smart way to do it. And I have to imagine it's not that much extra time, right? Like if you're doing it in, you said it was Scribe How to put it together and then having it, put together for them, like that seems to be less than training somebody 15 times on how to do something to make sure they get it right.
Absolutely. So you could have the every individual team member do it, or what I did was I actually hired a virtual assistant specifically for that project, and we spent months getting it together.
I love that. Yeah, I like it's interesting, especially you talked about the ability to start a firm with, no money or less money.
Hmm.
I love the ability as well now to have people so hyper focused, but in a way where they can take ownership of one part of your business instead of, having the paralegal who also answers the phone, who also does the intakes, who also does this, who also calls those people, who also orders, toilet paper for the office, and just making that into like do this 40 hours a week, have this person do this for 5, have this person do this for 10, and really get that specialization.
Absolutely. I believe that, in the event that you want to take a whole month off, because sometimes, let's be real, sometimes it's not worth taking a vacation to certain places. If it takes you days to get there, you want to take off at least 14 days. So you should be able to take that time off because you could when you had a job. So things should not change when you have a business. And then when it comes to hours, every role should have a hour requirement, as far as not an hour requirement, but a hour, I would say, template. So for example, my operations manager is going to do X amount of billable hours, even though we charge a flat fee, billable hours. We're expected that X amount of his time will be into project management, X amount of his time will be into admin. So that kind of help guides the people that you're working with. The old school model of having a bunch of people just doing a bunch of billable hours just to make ends meet, it's really outdated because a lot of their work, let's be real, could be done by a $10 an hour VA. So let's break it down. Let's make sure that we're pushing things down the pipeline as far as to the bottom of your organizational chart and letting the admin people assist your team members. We have a big team approach here. So a lot of the stuff that we do here at Prestige is very it's like on a team approach, very collaborative. And I teach my clients to make sure that they do the same thing. That way they can maximize the hours and time and payout that they're giving their team members.
Makes total sense. All right. Anything else before we dive into organize? Because it seems like that's the next step of having all these SOPs together.
Right. I think we're ready to dive right into organize.
Take it away.
So with organize, one, you have to have an organizational chart, and you have to have an organizational chart for not only the firm that you have today, but the firm that you want. So often I talk to attorneys and I'm telling them how they can quickly get more sales in their business. And the task that I'm telling them to delegate, they want to delegate to a paralegal at $50 an hour. And I have to tell them, no, 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 no.
Sorry,
No.
you broke up for a second.
The task that I'm giving these attorneys to do in order to increase the revenue in their firm should be given to an administrative assistant or a virtual assistant. However,
Gotcha.
unfortunately, they want to give it to the next person in charge, who is their paralegal, who gets paid $50 an hour. So we have to make sure that we have a hierarchy in our firm when it comes to that organizational chart. That will be key, and we are clear as far as what duties everybody is responsible for. That's one. Not only do we need to have an organizational chart for the firm we have today, but for the firm you plan to grow into. Because if over the next couple of years you're in a growth phase, we need to know who are the next 3 people that we're going to hire over the next few years. So when it comes to organization, we talk about having those SOPs to streamline training, having an organizational chart for the firm that you plan to grow into, and being very detailed as far as the expectations of the people on this organizational chart. I think having a template of a job description is great, but you need to be really real with these people and customize it to what they're actually doing on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis.
When it comes to, I mean, it's such a point I want to echo, like the giving the task to the right person, the $50 an hour employee, the 25, the 10, whatever it is. How do you help somebody make that decision, or how do you help somebody figure out who's the right person or what's the right financial amount for this task?
It's a little bit of sometimes it takes a little bit of industry research, and sometimes it's just my years of experience. I know what a $10 an hour job is versus the $50 an hour job. And so we first have to look at the timesheets. And a lot of people, unfortunately, aren't tracking time because they do flat fee, right? So that makes it a little difficult. So we have to incorporate timekeeping procedures in the firm, which also falls in line with organization. Once we look at that, we can look at where the gaps are. Where it is it sometimes people think that their employees are really busy, but their employees could really take on more work. Instead of hiring someone else, we really need to look at, I need to help them evaluate the effectiveness. If this case work should only be 3 hours, why are they spending 8 hours per case? So when we delve into the numbers, that's what happens. When we really dig deep into the numbers like that, we can help them figure out as far as which staff member is not really leading to their bottom line. So it starts at the top. We look at revenue. And then from there, we look at how many open matters they have. That helps us figure out the average case value. Okay. Then from there, we look at the direct costs, meaning the direct labor and any expenses that are not reimbursed. And the labor percentage, we ideally want to be lower than 30%. And if it's not, then it's easy for me to advise the client on what changes need to be made.
I love that, the under 30%. That's it's such an actionable goal, such an
Hmm.
actionable number, however you want to phrase that. All right. Anything else about organized before we move into financial statements?
I think we're good.
All right, let's do it. We're about the halfway point and about halfway through the 6.
Great.
So talk to me about the financial statements. Now we've got the proper planning, we've got the relaxation delegating, we've got some organization in here. Where do financial statements come in, or how do they come in?
So the financial statements are the skeleton of the business. The financial statements rather show me exactly what is wrong with the company. And so one, they need to know what their core financial statements are, those being the balance sheet. And the balance sheet talk shows assets, liabilities, and owner's equity. It shows how much money the firm has and how much they're owed, how much money they owe other people for loans, credit cards, bills, things of that nature, outstanding, and then how much equity they have in the company or how much they've taken out in distributions of profit. So a healthy firm will have ideally higher assets than liabilities. So especially when we talk about liquid assets. So liquid assets are those either cash or cash equivalents, something that we can cash out on. If there's an emergency, we have readily available funds to use for the business. Now, then we move on to the profit and loss statement. The profit and loss shows the income and expenses for the company. And what I do is I like to take it a step further and I like to pull a report that shows the percentage that every expense is of income. So we divide labor divided by income to give us the percentage for labor. We take rent divided by income. And we look at to see where, if we're too heavy in certain areas of business when it comes to expenses. A lot of people think the first strategy that they go to is cutting back on expenses. But sometimes that can be rather difficult to do because many firms are already too close to break even. And break even is the level of expenses where this is the bare minimum that you need to really run the firm. And this is where expenses equal profit, equal income, and there's no profit. And so when they're too close to the break even point, then we can't cut back anymore without cutting back on quality. So we need to develop strategies to increase income. And the last report is the statement of cash flows. This shows where money came and went as it pertains to different activity areas. So we'll see how much cash we want a lot of cash inflows. That means money came in, cash outflows are money that went out. So we'll be looking at operating activities. So of course, whatever is on the P&L that can constitute as operating activities, but we also have investing activities. So we might have money that comes in from a loan and things of that nature that you don't see on the profit and loss, and the statement of cash flow will really break that down. So this is really important for firms, especially those that are paying back debt or obtaining debt. So they may not understand. They say, I know my my balance at the end of the month was the same that it was last month. So how did I make a profit? Well, you made a profit of $10,000. However, you have so many loans that $10,000 went back to pay these loans. That's why you didn't see the money. So that report makes it easy for me to explain to a client where their money actually came from and went.
Makes total sense. Um, you mentioned under the profit and loss the percentage of each expense of versus income. I'm getting
Yep.
that. Okay, cool.
Mhm.
Are there consistent percentages a firm should be looking for on some of these things, or is it going to be very different from firm to firm?
It's very different based off of one, what industry you're in, um, and then even your income level. So the firm that makes $20 million a year versus the firm that only makes $200,000 a year, their percentage of income when it comes to marketing expense will be vastly different. But in general, labor, I always say, we always want to make sure labor is ideally less than 30% across the board.
Before we go into the incorporating profit first, I want to touch on that point because look, so many people listen to this are not necessarily solo, but small law firm owners.
Mhm.
And there's always this funky accounting where they're underpaying themselves and saying they're more profitable, but if they were making market rate, it would be different. So like, where does that play into that 30%?
So the 30%, when I do the 30%, I'm not looking at officer salary. So
Gotcha.
we have
Okay.
officer compensation as a separate line item than wages for everyone else.
Gotcha. Okay. So then
Yep,
so that 30% would be without the owner being paid for what they're doing and profit as the owner as well.
absolutely, yes.
Gotcha. That makes a ton of sense. All right. Is there anything else you want to talk about from financial statements or from the paying yourself what you're worth versus profit before we move into profit first?
No, I think that's a great segue.
All right. Profit first. The easiest way to keep your business running, I think.
Yeah, and a guaranteed way to show profitability. So we are a profit first certified firm. So we have a lot of firm owners incorporate this in their business. And profit first is a cash flow method that guarantees the business to be profitable. On the surface level, you have multiple bank accounts, and twice a month on your allocation days, you split the money from your earned income account into a number of different accounts. So the simplified version that I give people is that you'll transfer a certain percentage into a profit savings account. This is a savings account that you accumulate money over the year, and every quarter, when you take that quarterly business trip or quarterly vacation, you have funds in order to do so because they've been set aside. Then we have your tax savings account. So many times, people who earn a lot of money, if they don't plan for their taxes, then when it comes time to file their taxes, they are hit with a large bill. I've seen 10,000, 30,000, 50,000, $70,000 in taxes. And
The trick to avoid that is to have as many children as possible. Just
so
have
they
all the
say.
kids in the world. I'm being sarcastic, please, for anybody that
Yeah.
couldn't tell. I mean, have as many kids as you want, or I can have, or whatever it is. But
Right.
they will help with taxes to some extent, but that is not that's not the reason to have children.
Right. So one way to ensure that you have the funds to pay those quarterly estimated taxes so that you can avoid having that large bill and avoid having to pay underpayment penalties is to set aside a piece of every income, every dollar that you earn into this tax savings account and make those quarterly estimated tax payments from that account. Then we have the operating expense account. And with the operating expense account, this is where your expenses are going to be paid out. Now, the book teaches you to also have an owner's pay account. However, most firms are paying the owner payroll from the same account that they're paying the payroll for everyone else. So it could be kind of pointless to have that other account. But what I like to do is say, make sure that you at least allocate. So if I say that your owner's benefit percentage should be 45%, we want to make sure between the owner's compensation, distributions of profits, and maybe other benefits that the business pays for, such as cell phone, corporate apartment. We want to make sure that the owner is at least benefiting at least 45, 50% from the income that comes into this business. And quarterly, we can go through those percentage with the clients to see what progress they're making. And so by doing this, it gets you in the habit of really managing your money. I know so many people that never look at their bank statement, never look at their credit card statement, never to really transfer money unless they have an IOTA account, they have to transfer it to the operating account. But even if you have an accountant, you still need to be aware of where your money is and how much you have and where it's going and how much you have to be very intentional with paying yourself. A lot of times people start a business and they say, I started my own firm because I want freedom. But then they're not paying themselves a reasonable compensation. So you're working more than you were on your job and you're not paying yourself what you deserve to get paid. That doesn't sound like freedom to me.
Makes total sense. Or you've got the ones who are like, I always tell people at the beginning of having my firm, I looked at my credit card bill and I looked at my bank account and I wanted that much more money in the bank account. And like that was it. When there is a ton in there, it's great. But when
Hmm.
there's not, you have no idea what the problem is. As
Hmm.
opposed to when you're talking about the profit first, one, you're getting paid out off the top, but two, you've got all these buckets and it's so much easier to see like, okay, there's not as much money coming in. There's a marketing problem over here. Okay, there's too much going out to labor. There's a bandwidth issue or a pricing issue or a billing issue. It's so much easier to uncover what the real problem is the more you have this stuff organized the whole way
Yep.
through.
And it really shows you that you can really do more with less. Like it's the same thing with a deadline. You give somebody a deadline and say, I just need this in 3 weeks. They'll get it done in 3 weeks. You tell them I need it done in 3 days. They'll find a way to get it done in 3 days.
Totally. Absolutely.
Yep.
All right. Anything else before we jump over to Target?
I think we're good.
All right. Dude, this one great rundown, even better acronym for profit. But two, like it's been so easy to stay on time here. We've got about 15 minutes. And we've got Target, and then we'll do some wrap up and answer some other big questions. So Jayden, thanks so much for being with us so far today. And
Absolutely.
let's go to the last one, Target. I'm assuming
Yeah.
this is make a bunch of money so you can shop at Target and buy whatever you want.
Not
All
necessarily.
right. Well,
Okay, so when we talk about target, we talk about setting targets. So this means having revenue goals, having profit goals, setting targets as far as how many people you want to download your lead magnet. And then we even talk about who your target avatar is. I know you deal with this way more than me, but when I'm talking to clients, I break it down and I say, look at this list of cases. These cases only got you $1,000 per client. Okay. We know something in common with these clients versus these clients that paid you $10,000 a case. So what is that? That is needs to be your target market. I tell my clients to focus more on high value. There are people that teach volume, and I don't necessarily relate to that, having a volume-based firm if you're a small firm. I think it's much easier and more at ease to have a high value, low volume firm. It's easier to grow and scale. And so with that, we need to make sure that the target market is right. Okay. We can't talk to people that only have $50 in their bank account and try to get $10,000 out of it. That's just not realistic. And so setting these targets at least once a quarter and reviewing these, me personally, I have a every day my bookkeeper goes in and will document the balance for all of my bank accounts and available credits for my credit cards, and will also document how much revenue we've made that day. And then it tallies up to the bottom and it shows us how far we are from our goal. So if we have 10 days left in the month and I know that I need to make another $10,000, I know that I need to either get another client or I need to look at the AR report and see if there's money that we need to collect.
so I want to touch on something you said before, the with the getting the clients but knowing the value of the case or the profitability of the case. I just want to echo what Jayden said because this is like all of our successful clients have two things. One, they have a point of contact who's not them, who can do some of the more day-to-day marketing or at least respond to our emails and stuff. But for that purpose, the second one is exactly what Jayden talked about there. Like from a marketing standpoint, I can tell you, hey, this was the cheapest click to get to your highest value case. But what he's talking about is the second part of that is your highest value case your most profitable case? It's a $10,000 case that you work 100 hours on is not as profitable as a $5,000 case that takes you only 40 hours. So breaking that the whole rest of the way really makes you be able to target the marketing so much better. It's not just what's a case, it's what's the most profitable case that you can have and bring in consistently. So
Absolutely.
awesome stuff. So in the revenue goals, the profit goals, the marketing goals, the target client that you're looking for, how are you helping firms come up with that? How are you helping them figure out what's a realistic goal to set from a money standpoint?
Well, we start looking at history. So historically, where have we been over the past year, over the past few quarters, and what are we implementing right now to progress to make more? If you're not implementing anything, you're not going to see a change. Let's just be clear, right? And so based off of what they are willing to implement or already have in place, that kind of gives me an idea. But realistically, we can work backwards with them telling me how much they want their salary to be. And oftentimes it's too low. So then I have to get on Indeed and say, oh, really? Because somebody down the street from you is hiring. So you can actually just go quit today and just go get a job if that's
You
that's
actually
what
do
we're
that?
doing. Absolutely, yes.
Oh, dude, I love
And
that.
th- and then they tell me they don't want to get a job, and then we have to go back to their why, and then we have to, so we go through that, and then we convince them that this is where you deserve to be. A lot of people, especially who are like me, who don't come from money, they struggle with the concept of being deserving of being wealthy. You have a specialized skill, you're very intelligent, you're delivering value, you're helping people, you deserve to be wealthy. So kind of helping them navigate through that, determine what their salary is. From there, we can work backwards.
Okay, so selfish question, but
Hmm.
unselfish response from it. Because I love that you're going on Indeed and like, look, close to you in the same practice area, they're hiring a lawyer for more than you're saying you want to make. From a pricing the case standpoint, I talk to
Hmm.
so many lawyers who are like, well, the average cost of this in my area is blah, blah, blah. And I always give them like, are you an average lawyer? And thankfully, I'm pretty sure every single one has always told me, no, I'm above average. Great. So you should be charging above average. But any other insight on how to frame that part of it? Like, I get the Indeed being what you're making, but in terms of what your firm is charging, the value-based pricing, the hourly rate, whatever that is, like, how are you helping them talk themselves into that part of it, or helping them do that pricing, or what?
So the reason why a lot of people struggle with price is because they really don't have they struggle with actually effectively communicating their value and all that goes into it. So that's step one. We have to really break down. You're not just doing a divorce, okay? Your discovery, how long is that? So we have to break down we treat every deliverable, every matter type like a recipe, as if you had a pizza shop. So the cheese, the pepperoni, the crust, the marinara sauce. I need to know all of the pieces of your recipe for each of your deliverables. And then from there, we can look at, okay, well, how many hours does it take and who does it? And then we can look at the cost, and then from there look at the ideal profit percentage, and then that helps them substantiate their price a little more. But a lot of people aren't, from a number standpoint, aren't helping lawyers understand that. So a lot of CPAs are just telling them, they actually want them to show low profits so that they can owe less in taxes. And my methodology, my thought process doesn't coincide with that.
Yeah, it's an award. The more you pay in taxes, the more you made, as assuming you budget for it correctly and yada yada yada. All right, but before we continue on, I have to do that like super douchey thing in every podcast. Please, everybody listen to this. Go back and listen to what Jayden just said. when we talked about pricing. It's not just the divorce, it's the discovery, it's the filings, it's the mediation. So take that, make it the recipe like pizza, dive into the hours. I mean, if you just get that part, you will have such a better, more well-run firm if you can just break that stuff down. So thank you so much for sharing that and the way you did it, because we're gonna pull that clip. We're gonna run that clip. I'm gonna go back and listen to it. I'm gonna make everybody else listen to it. That was an incredibly succinct summation of so much of what it means to find a profitable pricing model for your firm. All right. But that being said, I cut you off. So, we're talking about the targeting, we're talking about the pricing, we're talking about people that didn't grow up with money having the opportunity to know that they are worth it, being okay paying, the right amount in taxes because you budgeted for it. Like, help me through that mindset for as many law firm owner listeners as we can.
Well, you have to really think about it in the sense that it goes back to your why. One, why did you leave the firm that you were at in order to start your own firm? And for me personally, it was because I knew that the churn and burn mentality that many CPA firms have did not resonate with me. I didn't like the fact that I only talked to clients when it was time to file taxes, and that there was so much more from a financial standpoint that we could do to help them throughout the year that we weren't doing because we were so busy trying to have a volume-based firm and charge low prices. And so everyone has a unique story as to why they do what they do. Maybe I would say less than 5% of the people that talk about it from a money standpoint. Okay.
Yes.
But I need them to know at a bare minimum, if you are working over 40 hours a week, you should get paid at least what the person that's getting that straight out of law school is getting. At least. It doesn't make sense for you to be burnt out only paying yourself $36,000 a year, because you can't tell me that you want to give access to justice or you want to help hundreds of people secure their assets so that they don't have to go through the probate system, but you only can help but so many people because you're scared to charge your worth. And when you're scared to charge your worth, then that limits how many people that you can help. So when we really break it down like that, when we really make them understand that you're holding on to doing so many things and you're holding on to 100-pound weight, and there's people around you that are willing to hold that weight for you so you can focus on rainmaking. When we break it down like that, it starts to make sense to people.
Dude, you
And
got me
I
fired
live
up.
by example. So I truly, I work, I'm not, I delegate, don't get me wrong, but I still work hard. Okay. I wouldn't have, made millions of dollars in less than 3 years without doing so. So yes, I travel every month so that I can mentally, physically, spiritually reset. But those 3 weeks that I am here, I'm working. Okay. And I show them the good and I show them the great. I take them on my journeys when I go to Nashville for CleoCon, or when I go to Chicago for ABA Tech Show. I'm showing them you can tie in having a good time and also being around people that you enjoy being around, and around people that might cut a check.
All right.
Who doesn't like a check?
Speaking of, here's our push. Here's what you and I need to tag team.
Okay.
ABA Tech Show needs
Okay.
to move to the week before or the week after Lollapalooza in the middle of summer in Chicago, and we need a double duty Chicago that way. Instead of this, none of this like random blizzard in March, or I think next year it's going to be mid-February. Like, come on, send us to the right cities in the right time of year. Chicago in the summer, no better place.
I highly doubt that will happen,
I
but
know, but it's a good
but
idea, right?
but you know what? ABA does an event every don't they do events every quarter?
I have no
So
idea.
It's possible. I'm on the email list, so I definitely. It's possible that they might already do an event in around that time.
There we go. All right, we'll dive into that afterwards. All right, can you go past 3:30?
Yeah.
All
Wait.
right.
Yeah.
All right, cool, because otherwise we've got 2 minutes.
Okay.
So I just as a I'll keep it as close to time as possible. Um, is there anything else you want to make sure we cover when it comes to the 6 steps, the profitability, running better law firms? I mean, listen, I've got 3 pages of notes, so I know we've done a lot, but is there anything else you want to make sure we cover in the time that we have?
If I could just plug the book, that would be
Yeah,
great. I
do
mean,
it.
I talked about it briefly, but if you really want more information on the profit method, I break it down in my #1 best-selling book called Raise the Bar, which is available on Amazon. It's available in both the ebook format and the physical book format. And
Do
it's an
me.
easy read. You can read it on a flight from the East Coast to the West Coast.
There we go. Do me a favor. Just when we're done, drop it in the chat. I'll make sure it gets shared. So for any of you watching this on the social media platforms, you'll have the link right to the book. Otherwise, if you're listening to it, you're going to have to Google it by the title instead of having the direct link. But so be it. We'll get it out there for you. All right.
Yep.
So to everybody who is watching and listening to this, thank you so much. It is so wonderful to have you all here. We will see you back here next Thursday at 6 p.m. for the next episode of Exhibit A Attorneys, where we interview attorneys and other experts across the country to talk about what it truly takes to be the Exhibit A of a successful lawyer. That being said, though, I'm not letting Jayden Doye go without one more thing. If somebody's been listening for the last 55, 60 minutes and remembers nothing that you said, one, shame on them. You need to go back and re-listen. But two, if that's the case, what would be your most important takeaway? What would be your biggest nugget of wisdom to help more law firm owners be the Exhibit A of a successful lawyer?
Understand that you deserve to be wealthy and stop overthinking what other people think about your price.
Ooh, I love it. Like, what are my competitors going to think? The competitors that don't care about you are going to smack talk your pricing, whether it's too high or too low or just right, and nobody cares. I love that. Awesome. Jayden, thank you so much for being with us. For anybody
Absolutely.
smart enough to want to get to know you more, connect with you more, hire you in your company, obviously we'll have the book link here, but what's the best way for them to get in touch?
Yeah, if they're looking to continue this conversation, they can go to talktojayden.com and book a for your people. I'll offer a complimentary consultation, and they can connect with me on social media. I'm always looking to connect on LinkedIn, Jayden Doye, Instagram, The Great Jayden.
Love it. And for anybody, again, listening but not watching, Jayden, Jayden, Jayden. Jayden, thank you so much to you, and thank you to everybody who watched and listened to this. We appreciate your time more than you'll ever know. And hopefully, no, forget hopefully. I know we provided you a ton of value because I got a ton of value out of this. I've got so many pages. This has been awesome. We'll see you all next Thursday, the next episode. Thank you for listening to this episode of Exhibit A Attorneys. If you're interested in becoming the Exhibit A of a successful attorney, please check us out at legalesemarketing.com, EASE.